All right. A lot of medical news coming out right now. Joe Biden suddenly has dementia, suddenly has prostate cancer, suddenly has bone cancer. I want to go through this and Dr. Fauci and other things. To help me do that, I have Dr. Naomi Wolf. Dr. Wolf, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, Mr. Gardner.
So you're somebody that I've wanted to have on for a long time. Let me give my audience some background.
Sure.
So Dr. Naomi Wolf is an 8-time best-selling author. She graduated from Yale. She has her doctorate of philosophy from Oxford University. She's one of the most hated and loved people in America because she chose to tell the truth about COVID, vaccines, Dr. Fauci, and Big Pharma. I was nervous to have you on during the lockdowns, and I hate that I had to put my channel over getting information out, but they were shutting people down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate you coming on today. What are your thoughts about this sudden announcement that the former president of the United States had undetected prostate cancer that has now gone to his bones?
Well, I'm, sorry for any of God's creatures who is suffering and facing mortality. As a former political consultant, your audience may not know that I was an advisor to Clinton's reelection campaign and then a consultant to Vice President Gore in his presidential campaign. But with my political consultant hat, the timing is exactly what I would do if I were advising the Democrats just at the moment when a really bad story is coming out, and indeed audio of President Biden being clearly disoriented, suffering from dementia. Many doctors who are not treating him, but from his visible symptoms, assumed it was Parkinsonian dementia. That he had while he was running the world's superpower, right? And had his finger on the nuclear button and, running the biggest economy in the world and trying to defend us from many adversaries around the world. Just at the moment that this incontrovertible evidence of his cognitive, I'm not even going to say decline, but incapacity appeared into legacy media. We in the alternative media have known about it just by observing, unfiltered footage for, many years. At that moment, they released a really very sympathetic human interest story about him suffering from prostate cancer, which many, families in America will relate to. It's a very common cancer afflicting older men. Doctors, and I'm not a medical doctor. Thank you so much for making that clear. It's important that no one ever think I'm a medical doctor, but not being a medical doctor, I'm aware that many medical doctors who are commenting on this note that there is no way that diagnosis could be this advanced without knowledge of those around him. So this really is Shakespearean, Mr. Gardner. I mean, what you've got zooming out, from this very sad figure who's been subjected, in my view, to at least 4 years of very grave elder abuse, right? Which is a crime. But what you've got beyond that is a very, and I've been a White House spouse. Again, I advised a presidential campaign and a vice president. A lot of people had to know and had to coordinate, not once in a while, but every day, all day, to cover this up. I mean, that's how a White House works. The chief of staff knew, the press office knew, the scheduler knew, the Secret Service knew. It wasn't their job to tell. But certainly, the opposition leaders must have known. The DNC knew, Nancy Pelosi knew, the committees knew, literally the press knew, right? I mean, to have Jake Tapper come forward with a book, I gather, saying, oh my God, President Biden was demented. He was there, literally all the legacy media sat there in the front row, second row, third row, witnessing a man that a 12-year-old could tell shouldn't have been let out by himself and shouldn't be bothered, should be left alone to do whatever people in that advanced state of dementia and cancer, want to do in their declining years. So that is my response to that.
Okay. My my own father dealt with prostate cancer until he passed away. And as I saw that, I thought, okay, wait a minute. Either he has the most incompetent medical physician on the planet, not doing PSA blood work, not checking his white blood cell count and any of that, even though they do these super in-depth medical exams at Walter Reed Medical, the best medical care on planet Earth, supposedly. And this just suddenly crept up on him and it spread to his bones. But you make a really great point. We have the Robert Hur special counsel tapes coming out. I listened to one. It made me so uncomfortable because he couldn't follow a train of thought. He like they asked him about documents. He talked about Hunter and Bo, and everybody knows I loved him. Like it had nothing to do with the investigation. And then this Jake Tapper book that's coming out. I've written a couple of books. You've written 8 books. You know how much effort goes into writing a book. These guys magically pump out a book in a couple of weeks that this guy has dementia, that he should never have been in control. This is like so many parties are involved. I just hope Democrat voters at least can admit, wow, we were lied to on a massive scale about this. Could we have been lied to on a massive scale about COVID and some of the other government stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a very grown-up set of logical conclusions. But, I'm a lifelong former Democrat. I'm now an independent. And honestly, you're being too nice. I really think you are, because it would take would be for any Democrat or anyone, any citizen, and this is our job, right? The founders said eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Anyone could have seen on C-SPAN an unedited clip of that president speaking, not filtered through cherry-picked sound bites on CNN or MSNBC, and witnessed, the debates. The poor man was having trouble with his words. I mean, everyone who watched the presidential debates witnessed President Biden trying to say something which wasn't right or aware about Medicaid. And then President Trump said very compassionately, I thought, I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he knows either. And if you're not in an hypnotic state, that's the moment, whatever your party affiliation, that you think this poor man is not capable of being president of the United States of America, right? So I fault all of them. And I fault, like, I have many loved ones who are passionate Democrats to this day. And I would bring this up with them because it was obvious that this poor man was demented. My dad had Parkinson's. It's not an easy illness. It's very sad to watch someone lose abilities day by day. And some days are better than others, which is what we saw with President Biden. I'm not saying I know that he had Parkinson's, right? But that I've seen many persuasive analyses, foot drop, gait issues, things like that, which are very distinct to Parkinson's. But my point is, someone I love who's really smart actually said that it kind of didn't matter that he was demented or a figurehead, because you're not voting for the man, you're voting for the policies. And I think that a lot of kind of neo-Marxist Democrats, especially younger ones, will believe that. Like, it's okay because there was his chief of staff, or it's okay because, there was Anthony Blinken, or it's okay because he was surrounded by these kind of Obama-ite, Clintonite, stalwarts on the Dem side doing the thinking for him. But I am here to tell you, as a White House spouse, that is not safe enough. That is a former White House spouse, massive security risk. The fact that we were not attacked with a nuclear attack or a major terrorist attack is just sheer luck. And look at what happened to us. What we were in denial about, like in an alcoholic family or an abusive family, everyone's not looking at dad, or grandpa. Grandpa's, he's just sleepy, right? Our enemies saw it, like, China saw it, Russia saw it, and our country was degraded. A Chinese spy balloon went across our entire nation during those years. We had infrastructure blowing up. We had attacks on our food supply, attacks, shipping crises, blackouts, infrastructure attacks, cyber attacks. Our enemies knew perfectly well. Our prestige plummeted around the world. There were wars all over breaking out because no one respected the United States. Why? Because we had an obviously demented man, as a puppet, like the worst corrupt regime. We had a puppet president.
Wow. Just a couple of things you made me think of is, number one, there's this atheist philosopher named Sam Harris. He, debates Jordan Peterson and others that you can have moral goodness just by being a good person versus religious beliefs. I remember when he said, like, I don't care if Hunter Biden had dead bodies in the trunk of a car, as long as it kept Trump out of office. And like what you're saying is, like, they didn't care. I also remember reading articles that maybe the office of president isn't as important as we thought. It really is the people around him, right? Like there were all these like little spin pieces, like, be careful, men. If you work out, you might actually vote conservative. Like just these little articles that I would read over the last couple of years that I'd go, this feels like propaganda. This doesn't feel like education. Let me ask you this, because you know a lot more than me. Let's take Biden at his word that nobody did know this. He got 5 or 6 COVID shots. Is there any chance he's got turbo cancer?
I mean, again, I'm not a medical doctor, but the only way, as I understand the progression of cancer, that it could possibly not have been identified while he was in office and manifest within a matter of months would be one of these bizarre turbo cancers that, according to oncologists or doctors who deal with cancer, like Dr. William Makis, are burgeoning, now, and we know why. There's SV40, which is a cancer accelerant in undisclosed in the COVID shots. So that would be one of history's great ironies if that was the case. But I will say respectfully, again, drawing on my experience, around the White House, another White House, the protocols, as you said, with Walter Reed and the private physician of the president's health doesn't belong just to him. I mean, you may recall, maybe you're too young, but there've been fights over gaining access to medical records of, most presidents, right? Because who wants their medical records to be public, of course, but the people always insist, Congress always insists, because you really do need to have a fit, cogent president, in office. It matters. If someone's got a terminal illness or, an alcohol problem, a drug problem, other things affecting their cognition, that doesn't just affect that man or woman and that person's family. It affects the United States of America, our future, our national security, especially. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the system is set up so that an oversight can't happen, right? You can't just have cancer and your doctor doesn't notice, Walter Reed doesn't notice, all the people who are reviewing the president's medical records for national security reasons, there's no way for that to happen.
Yeah.
And just by the same, to finish that riff, President Trump has had more than 2 assassination attempts that we know about. And the one, that was most public in July of last year, also from what I know about just the normal systems in the White House, that can't happen, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is these terrible things can't happen unless they're allowed to happen.
Yeah. I tend to believe that it is just a cover up versus turbo cancer. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I remember, I was young, but I remember kind of this debate in the media of, should Bill Clinton be out jogging and trying to lose weight, and Secret Service now has to try to keep up with his running schedule. And so, the president's health is not his or her own. Ed Martin, he was the guy that was picked to be the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C. Democrats and Republican Tom Tillis shot that down. Trump then moved him over into government weaponization. Today's his first day. He announced his first move is to deep dive into whether the Biden auto pen pardons are legit. Are they legal? Are they binding? If not, then he wants to open investigations into Dr. Fauci and some of the J6 committee. What are your thoughts on that? I want to tell you guys about the power of kimchi one. We all know that kimchi is good for our gut. There's an internal battle of good and bad bacteria every single day. And if your health is off, your happiness is off, brain fog, energy, it probably is something in your gut. Well, kimchi one has 900 positive strains of bacteria. That's right, 900 to help you with your gut health. Kimchi one supports health in the gut, digestion, boosts your immune system, can help with eating and also losing weight. It can also help if you had the miracle shot, because a lot of that gets stuck in your gut, and kimchi one helps to unclog you, to get it out of your system. Now, here's what I like. This is non-GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, and 100% made right here in the United States. There is no filler. This is kimchi in a capsule, and you're going to absolutely love it. Now, we've got a special offer for you. You can go to mybrightcore.com/kimchi or snap the QR code and use Gardner to get 25% off. Or call them and tell them that you are a fan of my show, and you will get up to 50% off plus free shipping. Just call 888-908-4425. Kimchi one has been great for my own gut health, and I know it will be for yours too.
I love it. I mean, I should disclose that Ed Martin and his then nonprofit were my website's fiscal sponsors. So
Okay.
there, I'm just giving that disclosure. So, I mean, I love it. It's very, what I do appreciate about this administration is their kind of sense of drama and common sense responses. Like and I think they can do that because they're outsiders, right? A lot of them are outsiders. I mean, that the Democrats are so networked that the impulse we tend to have is that was in the past. Don't make waves. Don't look under the hood. And they're like, well, if this guy's demented, who did all those auto pen signatures? But what I would say, again, zooming out and looking at this as a Shakespeare play or as a crime scene, right, is this is also a giant criminal conspiracy. I mean, I'm called a conspiracy theorist, but a conspiracy is just, they happen all the time at the highest levels of government. It just means people acting in a coordinated way that is not disclosed to the public to reach an outcome. Literally the definition of national politics. So for all those auto pen signatures, this poor man was not able to assess what was in front of him. Who assessed them? Who proposed them? Who drafted the pardon? Who literally, used the auto pen? It's a physical thing that's kept, as I gather, in a little closet. Someone had access to it. And again, former White House spouse, people don't wander in and out, or use the auto pen casually, unless things are in a complete shambles beyond even what we can imagine. But there's protocols, and there should be a record somewhere of everyone who had access to the auto pen, everyone who went into the White House that day, everyone who went into the Oval Office that day. These are all thoroughly documented checks and balances. And if, who was it? Hunter? Was it, the drug dealer? Was it the janitor? I mean, was it someone's prostitute? Like, literally, it is a matter, again, of national security to know who used the auto pen. And the people who use the auto pen are the same people who covered up a criminal situation, which was that the president of the United States was not fit to pursue the tasks of his office. And by the way, I did a deep dive into that, and the Constitution does say, when a president can't function, you have to impeach him, and there are specific people tasked with that, and they didn't do their jobs. And certainly the chief of staff is supposed to alert, what is the chain, as I recall, the vice president, the head of the speaker, for to Article 2, someone, I believe, I may be a little fuzzy on the section of the Constitution, but there's a clear process that our founders laid out for what you're supposed to do if you know the president is demented. And the people who know it are the people who work with him every day, and certainly the people who operated the auto pen. So again, massive crime scene. Ed Martin is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to seeing what he uncovers, what we learn. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, although they're saying, over 2,600 of the pardons were done with an auto pen. Right now, it looks like, just based on the shaky handwriting, that at least the Hunter Biden one was most likely him. But what about Dr. Fauci? What about the J6 committee? Others? I'll be very curious to know. Also, why didn't Kamala Harris call for him to step down? That might be investigated. President Trump last night, in a middle of the night rant, said he wants her investigated because she was giving all this money to concert people. Then they were putting on these fake rallies as if they were concerts. He wants that investigated. But I want to stay on the medical topic.
Sure.
You've written this book, the Pfizer papers.
Mm-hmm.
You say that the data buried in the Pfizer documents are the greatest crime against humanity. I remember when they were trying to get this information buried for 70 years. And now I'm learning that Dr. Fauci was part of the cover-up. What are some of the documents or things that my audience should know that constitute the greatest crime against humanity?
Thank you, Stephen. Just before I answer that, I want to point out one more thing about the auto pen, if I may. It's not just pardons. We have a friend who's a lobbyist in DC, and he happens to be a conservative, but he said that the lobbyists of DC were thrilled with this demented president because he would sign anything they put in front of him. So it's, legislation, it's contracts, it's agreements, it's not just pardons, it's literally all the business that would bear an executive signature. Millions, billions of dollars possibly flowing to people who knew, and he said that lobbyists on the left and the right were really happy with it because whoever got in front of the president, they could get a signature on their bill, allocating taxpayer money. Let me now go to your question. So it's not my opinion or my work that's in the Pfizer Papers book. I wrote the introduction and I edited the reports along with my COO, Amy Kelly. But the reports themselves, 109 reports altogether, 50 of them are in the Pfizer Papers published by Skyhorse. And we published all 109 on our website, Daily Clout. These are reports written by 3,250 doctors and scientists that Amy Kelly organized into 6 working groups. And they worked for 2.5 years going over the 450,000 documents released under court order that are internal Pfizer documents that were in the custody of the FDA. They were released via a successful lawsuit by attorney Aaron Siri, and the FDA asked the court to keep them hidden for 75 years. So it's those highly credentialed doctors and scientists who concluded what's in the Pfizer documents reports, not I. But it is the greatest crime against humanity in recorded history. And again, I'm the granddaughter of people who lost a total of 8 siblings in the Holocaust, so I don't use this language lightly, but numerically, it's the greatest crime against humanity because Pfizer knew, and the FDA knew, and the White House knew that they were causing, that 1,225 people died, reported by their doctors, upon receiving COVID injection within 3 months. The time period is right after rollout, the trial, the internal trials, and then 3 months into the rollout. They knew that there were not mild side effects like the CDC reported, pain at the injection site, fever, chills, fatigue, but they knew they were causing industrial scale strokes, heart damage, blood clots, lung clots, leg clots, thrombotic thrombocytopenia, florid neurological events, dementias, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, convulsions, epilepsies, Bell's palsy, Guillain-Barré. They knew they were causing skin disorders, eye damage, blindness, kidney damage, liver damage, just at a scale that is unimaginable. I mean, there are 143,000 serious adverse events in the Pfizer documents in those 3 months. And they also knew, and I'm moving quickly to the heart of this answer, that even beyond all of those horrific side effects that people know and see around them, the turbo cancers, right? Happening all the time, people collapsing, right? But, hurting themselves. I know a young, healthy woman who fell twice and lost consciousness. This is disclosed in the FDA, in the SEC filing for the BioNTech Pfizer injection, not to us, it was disclosed to the SEC. But anyway, they knew they were doing all that damage, killing people. But this heart of the Pfizer documents is a complete attack on human reproductive capabilities. Damage to semen, damage to ovaries, blocking of the ovaries with lipid nanoparticles, damage to the menstrual cycle, a chart showing tens of thousands of women menstrually damaged, which I was deplatformed in 2021 and smeared worldwide for raising this as an anecdotal, report from various women. They knew they were killing babies in utero. A report to the White House in April of 2021 showed babies dead in their mother's bellies due to exposure to the vaccine. They knew that they were there's an 80% miscarriage rate in one section of the Pfizer documents. They knew they were damaging the placenta. The lipid nanoparticles impair the placenta so that babies don't get nutrients, oxygen. You're seeing a lot of premature births. Live births have dropped 13 to 20% in the West, in the vaccinated nations. And there was a new one, it's actually getting worse, a new report out from the Czech Republic showing a 30% difference, that vaccinated moms are 30% less likely to bear live children as unvaccinated moms. They knew they were poisoning breast milk. There's another chart of babies nursing from vaccinated moms getting horribly sick, convulsions, fever, edema, which is swollen tissue. They just kept a chart of these sick babies, and they, to this day, haven't warned women who are vaccinated about lipid nanoparticles and polyethylene glycol and spike protein getting into their breast milk and making their babies sick. One baby died of multi-organ system failure. They knew that they told men who were vaccinated not to have intercourse with unvaccinated women of childbearing age, and if they did so, to use 2 reliable forms of contraception. They defined exposure to the vaccine as including body fluids. So to this day, there's something in the semen of vaccinated men that Pfizer was worried about. They still haven't told us, right? But women are anecdotally reporting a lot of symptoms. Well, I don't want to scare people necessarily. I'll just leave it at that. They warned men not to expose either women or an embryo, it's not clear which, to the semen of vaccinated men. COVID is a respiratory infection, but there's almost nothing in the Pfizer documents about breathing, oxygen levels, mucous membranes, the things involved in respiratory illness. It's weirdly centered on sex and reproduction. They, mated a vaccinated male rats with unvaccinated female rats, sacrificed the rats, and then dissected the tissues of their sex organs, right? So it's an injection clearly formulated and effective in disrupting human reproduction, and that's what's happening now.
In your opinion, those are all awful. I didn't get the shot because I read too much. I'm like, heck no, I'm not getting this thing. So do you believe that this is a bioweapon? Is mRNA technology just rushed science, or does it just not go with the human body like water and oil do not mix?
That's a great question. And I'm glad, you didn't. and I'm actively kind of spending a lot of my life trying to find ways to support the bodies of people who did, because there's very little, very little peer-reviewed studies about how to cleanse or treat or heal these harms. I don't jump to conclusions. I'm an old school journalist. However, if even before you go to market, you're killing babies and causing an 80% miscarriage rate, and then you roll it out, and then in April of 2021, 4 months after the rollout, you see and conclude that 2 more babies have died due to maternal exposure to the vaccine, and that you've destroyed the menstrual cycles of, tens of thousands in their study. So it's got to be hundreds of thousands in the population at large, right? If not millions of women's menstrual cycles, meaning their fertility. And you send that to the White House, and 3 days later, and it's an 8-page summary, right? Pregnancy and lactation report. 8 days later, Dr. Rochelle Walensky gives a White House press conference saying that telling the women of America there's no bad time to get your COVID shot before, during, or after your pregnancy. I believe I wanted to write this off as corporate greed, but that level of study about the damage, documentation of the damage, and then reporting of the damage, and then the White House with this report encouraging women to take it, that's premeditated. That's intentional. There's no way to say that it's not. And also, per your question, my individual reporting found that the COVID vaccine, the Pfizer version, was the IP was transferred. And again, this is in the SEC filing in 2021 to China. So it doesn't say Chinese individual or Chinese company. It says to China, our existential adversaries. So since 2021, if you get a Pfizer injection, you're getting something formulated, packaged, manufactured, distributed by people who, I'm not talking about the Chinese people, obviously, but the Chinese Communist Party want us gone. My husband spent many decades in intelligence and military intelligence, and he warned early on. I didn't believe him at first, but he showed me so much evidence I had to. He said, the Chinese Communist Party want our ports, they want our water supplies, they want our food supply, they want our energy grid, they want our transportation systems, they want our natural resources, they don't want our population. So they opened, the CCP produced 1 billion doses for export. Chinese people don't take this injection, they take something else. They opened 14 manufacturing plants in Western Europe, 11 in the United States. And so I do conclude that it is a bioweapon.
Wow. All right. I know you've got a busy day. We're up against the clock here. Thank you so much. I want to have you back on to go through this in greater detail. I'm going to put a direct link to your book, The Pfizer Papers, down below. I encourage people to check that out. Dr. Wolf, if people want to follow you online, where can I put for them to follow?
Thank you. Well, I keep being locked out of at Naomi R. Wolf on X and Daily Clout. My website also keeps being locked out of X, but we're on for now. So follow us there. And I'm over on Substack. My Substack is Outspoken, and also the site Daily Clout. You can see all the reports there. Do support us by ordering the book if you possibly can. Give it to your relatives, give it to your doctor. And remember that we're constantly under attack. So if you all are moved to support us, to subscribe, I'm very grateful.
Great. I'll put that link down below. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.